The thick forest canopy rose high overhead, its tangled branches weaving together to dim the pale glow of the distant sun. The air was thick with the earthy aroma of wet soil and moss, broken only by the occasional chirp of invisible wildlife. The man moved carefully, his boots pressing softly into the dense underbrush. He was familiar with the quiet solitude of this foreign world, a place where survival depended on both stealth and ingenuity. It was meant to be just another typical scavenging trip. The forest floor was scattered with remnants of long-past battles, twisted metal shells, warped weapons, and scraps of technology still valuable for trade. His main focus was finding anything of worth. But today, something unexpected drew his attention. A low, guttural groan reached his ears, barely distinguishable above the rustling leaves. His grip on the rifle tightened as he advanced, each step measured. Pushing aside a curtain of thick vines, he discovered the source. A figure sprawled among the wreckage of a downed alien craft. Her armor, scorched and dented, bore the insignia of a high-ranking warrior. She was tall, her build imposing even in weakness. Her skin, a dark hue marked with faint patterns, shimmered with sweat and blood. Despite her injuries, her eyes snapped open as he neared, golden irises locking onto him with a fierce, unwavering gaze. Her hand twitched toward a broken weapon beside her, but she lacked the strength to lift it. "Why do you hesitate?" she rasped, her voice hoarse and sharp. "You're wounded," he replied calmly, his tone steady. "I'm not here to fight." She narrowed her eyes, saying nothing, clearly judging him. Against his better instincts, he knelt beside her. The wound in her side was severe, her blood a thick, dark fluid that soaked into the soil. He moved quickly, tearing cloth from his pack to bandage her as best he could. She winced but made no sound. "You're a fool to help me," she muttered. "Maybe," he said as he lifted her carefully, "but I don't leave people to die." She didn't resist as he carried her back through the forest, though her eyes never left his face. Their journey was silent, marked only by her labored breaths and the soft crunch of leaves underfoot. His shelter was tucked into the rugged cliffs, hidden by thick foliage. Inside, he laid her on a makeshift cot and hurried to gather supplies. The warrior watched him cautiously, her body tense despite her weakened state. Over the following days, he tended to her injuries. She spoke little, her silence laced with both suspicion and pride. When she did speak, her words were precise, revealing little but carrying weight. Despite the gulf between them, a fragile bond began to form. "You're taking a great risk," she said one evening, her voice stronger. "Your kind would call you a traitor for helping me." "I don't care what they think," he replied, stoking the small fire that warmed the room. "Out here, we set our own rules." She studied him silently for a moment, then gave a slight nod. "You've earned my respect, human." Her recovery was swift, her alien biology allowing her to heal faster than he'd expected. Soon, she was moving around the shelter with ease, insisting on helping with repairs and foraging, her disciplined nature always present. One day, as they returned from hunting, she turned to him and said, "Your life no longer belongs to just you." He raised an eyebrow. "Is that so?" She nodded solemnly. "You saved me. Among my people, such a debt is sacred. I will remain at your side as your protector and companion." He hesitated. "You don't owe me anything." "I owe everything," she said firmly, "and I do not break my vows." Their new relationship took time to adjust to. She was relentless in her dedication, shadowing him on every task, watching his back through each expedition. Her combat skills were exceptional, and though he could hold his own, her presence gave him a newfound sense of safety. As weeks passed into months, their connection grew. They spoke of their histories in fragments, each shared memory building a bridge of understanding. She spoke of her homeworld, of the harsh training that forged her, and of the ironclad code of honor that governed her life. He spoke of his own pain, of loss, solitude, and a life carved by war and the pursuit of peace. But their quiet life was soon disrupted. One morning, the distant drone of engines pierced the forest's calm. He barely had time to react before a squad of soldiers emerged, weapons raised. Their uniforms marked them as part of the human military, faces grim and unrelenting. Their leader stepped forward, his weapon aimed at the warrior. "Step away from the alien," he ordered. "She's dangerous." The man raised his hands, moving between them. "She's not your enemy." The soldier growled. "She's one of them. Her existence is a threat." The warrior stepped forward, calm and firm. I no longer serve my people. My allegiance is here now. The soldiers exchanged wary looks, but the leader remained unconvinced. Tension thickened in the air as both sides edged toward conflict. The man's voice broke the silence. If you harm her, you'll have to get through me first. The leader paused, clearly weighing the situation. Eventually, he lowered his weapon slightly. You've made your choice, but understand this. If you're seen helping the enemy, you'll be hunted like one. With that, the soldiers withdrew, leaving their warning to hang in the air like a storm waiting to break. She observed their departure, her face unreadable. You'd turn against your own people. For me? They're not my people anymore, he murmured. Out here, it's just the two of us. She nodded slowly, her amber eyes reflecting the fire's flickering glow. Then we face whatever comes, together. The days that followed were filled with heightened alertness. They reinforced their refuge, anticipating the unavoidable clash that loomed on the horizon. Yet, even amidst the looming threat, they found comfort in one another's presence. Their connection, forged through hardship, had become unshakable. In the time ahead, they would confront many trials, hostile enemies, treacherous terrain, and the ever-looming shadow of war. But through it all, they stood united, bound by a promise deeper than words, a bond that transcended species and allegiance. Together, they carved out a new life in the heart of the wilderness, a living testament to the power of loyalty, courage, and the unyielding resilience of the human spirit. The air had grown colder, a quiet chill creeping in as the seasons shifted. He busied himself repairing the shelter, bolstering the walls with salvaged metal and sealing cracks with resin. She stood nearby, silently watching, her sharp eyes sweeping the horizon. They had learned to move as one, their routines interlaced like the strands of an inseparable weave. At last, she spoke, her voice calm but firm. They'll be back. He paused, brushing sweat from his brow. I know, and next time they won't come alone. She nodded as he tightened a bolt on a corroded panel. Then we'll be ready. Her gaze rested on him, still difficult to read, but something gentler stirred beneath the surface. You're not afraid to die, she observed. He shrugged, setting down his wrench. I've spent enough time living without meaning. Now, I have one. She tilted her head, golden eyes glowing faintly. Me? He met her stare without hesitation. You. A heavy silence settled between them, broken only by the soft crackle of flames. She moved closer, her nearness filling the space with quiet warmth. I've never belonged anywhere but the battlefield, she confessed, her voice quieter than usual. My life was shaped by war, but here, with you, I feel something more. He leaned back against the wall, arms crossed. We're both outsiders. Maybe that's why this works. She stepped forward, her tall form casting a long shadow. Yes, outcasts. But together, we're stronger than I ever was alone. He didn't argue. There was no need. Words between them were becoming less necessary. In the weeks that followed, they fell into a steady rhythm. They prepared for what they knew was coming. The soldiers would return, likely in greater numbers and with deadlier intent. She trained with relentless focus, sharpening her damaged blade and practicing her movements with lethal precision. He reinforced their defenses, building traps from scavenged components and dormant explosives. Then, one morning, the hum of engines cut through the stillness, a low, ominous sound that swelled with every passing second. They exchanged a single look. No words were needed. It was time. She was the first to rise, strapping on armor now strengthened by a mix of human craftsmanship and alien durability. He followed, donning the makeshift protection he'd assembled over the years, his rifle slung over his shoulder. You know they won't stop, he said as they approached the edge of the shelter. No, she replied, but neither will we. They positioned themselves at the forest's edge, hidden within the dense greenery. From their vantage point, they saw the convoy approaching, a column of armored transports flanked by heavily armed soldiers. The same commander was there, his face set with grim purpose. They brought more, she noted, her tone calm. More than I expected, he admitted, but not more than we can handle. The first trap went off with a deafening blast, one of the lead vehicles engulfed in flames. Panic erupted as the soldiers scattered, locked shouting commands. She surged forward like a phantom from the trees, her blade carving through the enemy with ruthless efficiency. He covered her from the flank, picking off soldiers who broke formation or tried to circle around her. They moved together, a flawless, unstoppable force. The fight was brutal but brief. The remaining troops, rattled and overpowered, retreated into the woods, dragging their wounded. The commander, injured yet alive, locked eyes with the man once more before disappearing into the shadows. When the last echoes of battle faded, she returned to him, armor stained with blood but her face composed. "They will come again," she said without fear. He exhaled, lowering his weapon. "Let them." She rested her hand on his shoulder, a firm, grounding gesture. "We are not alone anymore." "No," he agreed, "we're not." They stood side by side in the clearing, surrounded by the wreckage of war. The forest fell quiet once more, but within that stillness there was peace, hard-earned and fragile. It had not been forged by violence, but by the enduring connection between two souls who had chosen to stand together, no matter the price. As sunlight broke through the canopy above, casting golden rays on the scorched earth, they knew one truth: they had already won. The aftermath was a quiet one. Smoke from the burning wreckage drifted skyward, twisting through the trees like fading spirits. The smell of charred metal and scorched soil lingered, a stark reminder that in this place, peace was always fleeting. She knelt beside the remains of one of the ruined vehicles, inspecting it. She examined the wreckage with a discerning gaze, her armor now battered and smeared with dried blood. As she moved, it clinked softly, the blade in her hand still dripping crimson onto the damp moss below. He approached carefully, brushing soot from his face. "It's done. For now," he said, his voice hoarse with fatigue. "You should get some rest." She stood tall, a commanding figure, but her eyes softened when they met his. "Rest is for the frail," she replied, though there was no sting in her words. "You're not unbreakable," he said, a faint smirk tugging at his lips. "Even you have limits." She tilted her head, reflecting briefly. "Perhaps. I haven't discovered them yet." Still, her stance betrayed a subtle fatigue she couldn't mask. He reached out and laid a hand gently on her arm. She didn't resist. "Come back inside," he said quietly. "We'll get ready for what's next, together." She nodded, just slightly, and together they made their way back to the hidden refuge. Inside the shelter, the fire crackled softly, its warmth pushing back the encroaching chill of night. She sat beside the flames, cleaning her weapon with practiced care. Her movements were precise, almost ceremonial. He watched her silently before reclining across from her with a tired sigh. "You've fought in so many battles," he said, breaking the stillness. "Do they ever really end?" Her eyes stayed fixed on her blade. "No, not entirely. But you're not alone this time," he reminded her. She paused, her hands stilling. Then she lifted her gaze, intense and unwavering. "No," she agreed, "I'm not." Setting the weapon aside, she leaned forward, resting her elbows on her knees. "You've become more than a debt owed." He blinked in surprise. "What do you mean?" "I mean," she said slowly, "that I stay because I choose to, not out of duty, not out of honor." Her voice dropped to a softer, rare tone. "I stay because you are mine, and I am yours." The words settled heavily between them, firm, unshakable, and quietly reassuring. He gave a small nod, a ghost of a smile forming on his lips. "Guess that means I'm stuck with you." She smirked, fleeting but genuine. "Yes, for good." The following days unfolded in an unusual tranquility. They hunted, reinforced their hideout, and prepared for what they knew would eventually return. But in the quiet moments, they found something neither expected: belonging. One evening, under a deep indigo sky, they sat atop a rocky ledge gazing across the forest. The stars above were foreign constellations, strange and distant, but somehow no longer lonely. He leaned back on his hands. "Do you miss your world?" She stared upward, thoughtful. "It was my home, but never really mine." Looking at him, she added, "This place with you is different." "Different how?" She turned to face him fully, her golden eyes glinting with starlight. "Here, I'm free. Here, I'm more than just a fighter." He smiled, the tension he once carried slowly dissolving. "Yeah, me too." For the first time in what felt like forever, the future seemed possible, still uncertain, but not empty. They had discovered something rare in each other, a place to belong. And no matter what the next confrontation brought, they would face it side by side. As the night deepened, stars blinked like distant fireflies scattered across velvet darkness. They remained on the ledge in peaceful silence, the only sound the wind whispering through the trees. She sat upright, still vigilant despite the day's toll, while he reclined, arms folded behind his head, finally allowing himself to unwind. But peace never lasted long. A low, distant hum, faint but unmistakable, drifted to their ears. She rose instantly, hand instinctively gripping her weapon. "They're coming," she said, her voice taut and low. He sat up quickly, eyes scanning the shadowed tree line. "They won't take their time." "This is everything they've got," she warned. "Their final push." He stood beside her. "Then we make it count." They descended swiftly, their movements in sync, not needing to speak. Back at the shelter, they moved with silent urgency. He checked the perimeter traps, ensuring they were primed. She owned her blade until it shone like liquid silver in the flickering light, then strapped on her patched armor with the practiced calm of a veteran. Standing at the entrance together, he turned to her. "We could still run." She looked at him, her expression fierce but tender. "No," she said firmly. "This is where we make our stand." He chuckled softly, despite the tension in the air. "I figured you'd say that." They waited in the quiet cold, the sound of approaching engines growing steadily louder, until the first piercing beam of light cut through the trees and the woods lit up in stark white flashes. And from the darkness came the voice they both recognized. The commander's voice thundered through a loudspeaker. "Step out, human. This is your final warning. Hand over the alien, and your life will be spared." He looked at her, and they exchanged a knowing glance. "Mercy isn't their strong suit," he muttered. She raised her sword, voice calm and resolute. "We do not yield," he smirked. "Glad to hear it." The battle erupted in a storm of noise, smoke and fire bursting skyward as the first trap went off. Armored soldiers advanced, heavily armed, but the forest itself fought back. Every step they took triggered another hidden explosive or snare. She moved like a tempest, her blade a blur of deadly accuracy as she tore through enemy lines. He stayed behind, covering her back, each shot precise and deliberate. Together, they moved as one, instinctive, unspoken, unstoppable. Through the haze of battle, the enemy leader emerged, grim determination etched across his face. He raised his weapon, but she was faster. Their blades clashed in a shower of sparks as they fought fiercely in the clearing. He watched, ready to assist, though he knew she could hold her own. With a final, decisive strike, she knocked the weapon from the commander's hand. He stumbled backward, breath ragged, staring into her eyes. "Why?" he rasped. "Why protect him?" She lowered her blade slightly, enough to make her answer clear. "Because he is my home." The leader stared at her, a flicker of disbelief, perhaps even regret, passing across his face. He dropped to his knees, the will to fight drained from him. Around them, the remaining troops faltered, then fled into the woods, leaving only silence in their wake. She turned to the man, breathing hard, but unshaken. He stepped toward her, resting a hand on her shoulder. "It's over," he said gently. "For now," she replied, her voice steady, unafraid. Together, they stood in the aftermath, smoke and blood heavy in the air. Yet, amidst the ruins, a strange stillness had settled. She looked at him, golden eyes shining with something deeper than victory. "We've won more than just this fight," she whispered. He nodded, his hand still on her shoulder. "We've won our future." They returned to their shelter, leaving the battlefield behind. Though the war might return someday, they had survived this one, and they would face the next side by side, bound by an unbreakable bond. Beneath alien stars, they were finally free. In the days that followed, peace slowly reclaimed the forest. The wreckage remained, scattered across the undergrowth, but the threat had passed. Perhaps for good. They rebuilt not only their shelter, but something new, something more. She helped him gather what could be salvaged from the fallen soldiers. Despite her toughness, he noticed a subtle shift, her posture more relaxed, her eyes less guarded. The weight of endless vigilance had eased. One evening, beside the fire, she placed her blade down, not out of duty, but because she no longer needed it to feel safe. He noticed and grinned. "Getting soft?" he teased. She raised an eyebrow. "Soft?" Her voice carried playful menace. "I could still snap you in two." He chuckled, shaking his head. "No doubt, but you don't have to prove it." Silence settled between them, comfortable, warm. Outside, the forest hummed gently with life. Survival had given way to serenity. "You've changed," he said at last thoughtfully. "You smile more, and not just after winning." She considered this, tilting her head. "You've changed me." she admitted, but not into something weaker, into someone at peace. He leaned back, gazing at the ceiling. I never thought I'd find that out here. She reached for his hand, firm yet gentle. Neither did I. Time moved on. The shadows of war faded. They built a life not of survival, but of shared joy. They explored the wild, found beauty in the smallest details. The sunlight through the trees, the cool winds, the unexpected laughter. One morning, she stood on the rocky ledge, watching the horizon as the first light of dawn bathed the sky. He joined her, wrapping a cloak over his shoulders. I used to think I'd die on a battlefield, she said quietly. He stood beside her. And now? She turned to him, eyes soft. Now, I think I'll die in peace. He smiled, taking her hand. Not for a long time. She squeezed his hand, still strong but now gentler. No, she agreed, not for a long time. They stood there as the sun rose, uncertainty ahead, but a future nonetheless. One built on trust, respect, and a love that needed no words. In the heart of an untamed world, two souls, once lost, once broken, had found each other, and beneath the alien sky, they were no longer warrior and protector. They were equals, forever bound, and truly free.